Hello friends, welcome to English Shorthand class. Ready? 1, 2, 3, start. Gaviri Seth, 25, a fresh medical graduate and a doctor at a government COVID-19 facility in Uttar Pradesh, Sultanpur district, says she is hurtling towards a breakdown. When I go home, I cry. I graduated with such different expectations. The conditions at the center she works at are dire and she finds it hard to cope. There is not even regular water supply, let alone oxygen for the patients. The doctors ask patients to lie prone. But when the patient is gasping and needs oxygen, what can we possibly offer as substitute? She asks. Sometimes she is so shattered she leans on anti-anxiety pills. She has nightmares and says she needs to talk to a therapist. When home, Dr. Seth is gripped by the fear of transmitting the virus to her family. Until May 18, Uttar Pradesh, India's most populous state, recorded 18,072 deaths. As the casualties rose, the government was criticized for alleged under-reporting. Rather than address the deficits, the state government at the peak of the second wave threatened individuals and institutions who reported oxygen or medicine shortages. As they cope with the enormity of the pandemic and the mishandling of it, India's doctors, nurses, radiographers, lab technicians, anesthetists, and young interns are under extreme psychological pressure. Many of them are reporting anxiety, insomnia, and burnout. The unrelenting influx of patients, the mounting deaths, the endless hours of work, the helplessness at the lack of resources, the fears of contracting COVID-19 or infecting their families, everything is contributing to a budding mental health crisis in the healthcare sector. Anger and guilt. At a private hospital in Bengaluru, Anjana Kumar, 33, is a labor room nurse. Last week, when a patient's test returned positive, Kumar panicked. She had attended to the patient for a whole day without PPE and returned home to her infant daughter and 60-year-old mother. I immediately called my sister and asked her to take my baby and mother away, she says. But as she waited for her own test results, Kumar felt racked by guilt and anger. The hospital tells us to use PPE only if the patient is confirmed positive in order to save costs. We often wash and reuse masks because there aren't enough to go around. In Kolkata, even though the private hospital Dipanida Bhaskar, 32, works for is relatively well equipped, she is seized by a sense of helplessness and despair. As an ICU doctor, she sees the sickest patients. All too often, no matter what she does, she cannot save a life. I may be talking to them one day, talking to their families over the phone, and the next day they are no more. There are days when Dr. Bhaskar is able to disassociate herself from work, but there are many days when she feels constantly anxious. Over the last week, the number of people who have died in her ICU has climbed to 10 to 12 daily. I find it difficult to sleep, she says, but steels herself and carrying on. Psychiatrist Soumya Krishna is increasingly seeing these symptoms in frontline healthcare workers. What I notice is that they are very averse to seeking help. There is a tendency to minimize their problems, internalize them, says Dr. Krishna, co-founder of the Bangalore-based Green Oak Initiative, a community mental health organization that runs a helpline for healthcare workers. If you look at the way doctors are trained, they are taught to manage emotions. You can't feel upset, you just carry on. But with a catastrophe of this magnitude, people are going to destabilize, she says. We are seeing stress, anxiety, lack of sleep because people are unable to switch off after a long day of work. A sense of helplessness is almost all pervasive. Healthcare professionals strive to help people, but in this situation, no matter what you do, people die. There is a feeling of a lack of control and a patient's death, says Dr. Krishna, brings a deep sense of loss that frontline workers do not have the time to process. A few weeks ago, when Usha B. 53, a nurse, was on COVID-19 duty at a government hospital in Chennai, a younger patient in his 20s died. He was just fine. I did spoken to him, given him coffee and breakfast. Within 10 minutes, he had a heart attack and passed away, says Usha. She was agonized, but all she could do was meditate to calm herself down. There's manpower shortage at her hospital, and the last 13 months have been mentally exhausting, says Usha. Being responsible for so many people is extremely taxing. When on morning shift, Usha's day begins at 3:30 a.m. She makes breakfast and lunch for her family, washes the dishes, then leaves to get to work by 7 a.m. She puts on her PPE and N95 mask, and the endless cycle of caring for dozens of COVID-19 patients begins. Sleeplessness dogs her, and her blood pressure shot up last week. There was not even time to get a proper checkup because there was so much work, she says. When Usha returns home, she soaks every single thing she has used in hot water, even her water bottle and handbag, before showering and greeting her family.